Radio check.
Now, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now, if you're not completely satisfied, a few words from better than ever in your neighborhood.
Everything Pharmacy.
Life is just always mysterious and surprising. You never know what's around the next corner. You never know what's around the next corner. So.
Hey guys, and welcome to RX Radio, a podcast about everything pharmacy. Today's episode is going to be an interview with Dr. Mike Corvino, owner and founder of Core Consult RX. Dr. Corvino is someone that's super passionate about pharmacy, and he's a huge inspiration for me, and I really hope he'll be one for you as well. All right, so let's get started. Mike, thank you so much for having me here, having me in your city.
Yeah, buddy.
I feel especially welcome to be with one of the most, in my opinion, famous pharmacists.
Ooh, no, let's not get carried away.
On social media, definitely in Charleston.
I appreciate it, man.
Probably America.
I'm super, yeah, something like that. I'm super pumped to have you, man. This is fun. I'm glad we're doing this.
No, this is exciting. I mean, I'm really glad that we get to collab and you know, talk about pharmacy, talk about the thing that we're living for, that we're passionate about, and really wanted to start with, you know, just getting to know you a little bit better. I mean, you know, obviously we've met already for the first time today. I've gotten to know you, but let's.
I feel like we hit it off too.
I know, man.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
Okay.
it's, you know what it is, and you know, it's the sports thing. I think.
Yeah.
Like it's super apparent. I wrestled in high school.
Mm-hmm.
You're a professional MMA fighter.
Well, former. Now I'm an
but-
out of shape former professional MMA fighter.
But I think that connection, like without us even, because we didn't even talk about it for a while, but I think that was like an apparent reason. But
Yeah, for sure.
Wanted to-
Same kind of mindset.
yeah, but I wanted to, you know, get to know you a little bit better. You know, start from you telling me a little bit about yourself in the formal way,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
get it going that way.
Cool. So, yes, I did undergrad, did a biochemistry degree in undergrad. At that point, I was kind of undecided whether or not I wanted to do med school or pharmacy school. Ultimately went the pharmacy school route because I wanted to make sure I had the flexibility to kind of jump into several different things. Not that you can't do that with med school, but I didn't want to become a specialized, you know, let's just say cardiologist and then
Yeah.
realize I wanted to try something different later on. Pharmacy gives you a little bit more leeway to jump into different things. So decided on pharmacy, and kind of at the same time, going towards graduation, I did my first MMA fight, and it was amateur, obviously, and I really, really enjoyed doing it. So much so that I actually toyed with the idea of just going that route and not even trying pharmacy school, but ended up applying and getting accepted and going and trying to just do both. And I guess it was after my first year, maybe in the second, I can't really remember the timeline, but somewhere in there, in the first or second year, or beginning of second year, I got an offer to fight professionally. And again, kind of toyed with the idea of, well, maybe pharmacy isn't for me, and I might drop out and
Yeah.
just do that professionally and this, that, and the other. So I decided against that eventually, and kept pursuing MMA at the same time. Wasn't super focused on pharmacy. I was doing enough to get by, but really didn't put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah.
And somewhere around third year, just kind of had that realization. And that summer before my third year, actually, I got married, and kind of had the realization that the long-term game of MMA probably wouldn't be there. It's a hard sport. It takes a number on your body, and really can come, you know, one injury you're away from your career being
Yeah.
ended. So went the safe route and kind of decided I was going to fully focus on pharmacy school. And having the competitive nature that I do have, once I hit fourth year and realized that, okay, well, this is the real thing now. Like, sitting in a classroom is one thing. I hated it with all my being, and getting me to go to class was like an act of Congress. I mean, I just did not want to go.
Yeah.
But fourth year was a whole different ballgame, because that's what I like. I like actually performing. I'm a kinetic learner. I like to do that action. So for me, fourth year was awesome, and I was volunteering for any like projects that I was on, you know, that I could possibly get my hands on. Was just really going after it. And that's kind of where I kind of came into, the pharmacist. It's sort of where I started molding the pharmacist that I am now, and realizing how many different opportunities there are, and I really started opening as many doors as I could, because for me it's a competition. Even if nobody else is competing with me, I just, for my own psyche, I need to have a competition. So I'm putting a jersey on. I'm going after somebody. I don't know who it is.
I just want to take a moment for people to realize that if you didn't just catch what a little bit of a description of Mike here, he was a professional MMA fighter in pharmacy school. And there's people that complain like, oh, I don't have time to do this. This human being right here was in pharmacy school and was also professionally fighting. Let that sink in. Let you think about that the next time you think you don't have time to do something because you have to study for something, or you're in school, or you're working 40 hours at a pharmacy, whatever your excuse might be. Don't say you don't have time for something. There's always ways to make time one way or another.
Right. Yeah, I remember I took a test one day, and I had sweatpants and a hoodie on, so it looked like I was just wearing athletic clothes. But underneath it, I had trash bags on because I had to cut 20 pounds to make weight.
Yeah,
and I was taking a pharmacotherapy test, just sweating my behind off, and nobody realized
That's
it.
So
but
funny.
Yeah,
my God,
probably could have done better if I wasn't sweating. But
yeah. So going a little bit forward to now, what are you doing now?
So right now, doing a few different things for my actual income, and that's primarily I'm managing a pharmacy, a community pharmacy. So I do that full time and have about 3 pharmacists that work underneath me, and then several technicians, probably 6, 7 technicians, and do that full time. I also do a lot of the MTM for that pharmacy and for the pharmacies that are surrounding it that are owned by the same company. And then they also, I got a job right as I got hired on as a pharmacy manager. I kind of got offered to do this other job that's basically works like a private contractor for the city of Charleston. And it's seeing diabetes patients that also work for the city. So they're all employees of the city. And the city has this program where if they will meet with the PharmD and their MD regularly, they get their diabetes medications paid for. So these patients that are on insulin, it's covered. It's an awesome program that Charleston's doing. And so I do that as well, and actually meet with them one-on-one, either at their job site or wherever they want to meet, and actually have time to sit down with them. And I'll spend an hour with these patients just going over diet, just going over carb counting. Some of them need help with their insulin, their dose titrations. Sometimes I'll collaborate with their physician and get them on the correct meds. Whatever the case may be, it's a lot more hands-on, a lot more one-on-one, because the city gives me the opportunity to do that.
Now, there's a lot of community pharmacists obviously out there that are probably listening that they're maybe unsatisfied with their current position, or maybe they're just looking to do more. Would you say that that's something that is a viable option for them to do, or how did this come about? Is this something that's common here, or?
So this kind of came down to, there was a professor at MUSC, which is the school that I went to, who was already in the program, and I applied for this program 4 months after graduation. So I was a brand new pharmacist, just got my PharmD, and when I applied, they were very nice about it, but I got the impression they were like, wait, you've been a pharmacist for how long? Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
And they will put you on a waiting list, they told me. And so I was a little disappointed, but I could just tell. I was like, maybe one day it'll play out in the next couple of years. But that professor is somebody that I kind of used as a mentor and really tried to work hard for on rotation. Every shred of responsibility he gave me, I went for it. And continually went to him after I graduated and tried to meet up with him with different projects he was working on, just and keep in touch with him and show him that I wasn't just the same old kind of person. And the next day, the lady from the coordinator that's in charge of the whole program contacted me and said, hey, the professor's name's James Starrett. For you guys, I'm sure he wouldn't mind sharing his name. But Dr. Starrett is saying that he wants to lighten his load of patients because he's got some other projects he's working on. He's working on telehealth and some things, but he will only let them go to you. So we have to hire you if he wants. If in order for him to that's so all that extra work I put in and the connection I had built with him, where some people would look at that as, well, how do you justify spending that free time. You're a student. You don't have very much time as it is. You just never know how it's going to play out. I would have never thought that I'd be in that situation, but that happened to me 2 years ago, and I'm still working for them, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, that's a great example of why it's so important to really plant all the seeds that you can when you're on rotations, and to just not let any seed not go unplanted, I would say, because you just never know how or what type of relationship or connection that could bloom into after you graduate years down the line. So that's a really cool example of that. I mean, I'm super passionate about MTM. I think that's really the future of pharmacy, and you definitely seem to embrace that as well with all that you're doing. Let's move a little bit into, I guess, like the future of pharmacy. I mean, where do you see that going? How are you feeling about the future of pharmacy?
So something has to change. I mean, I'm not naive to the fact that reimbursement rates are down. Companies are having to adjust, whether it's tech hours or whatever it is, and cut costs wherever they can, especially the big chains, because they have to justify the lack of profits. I mean, I'm a pharmacy manager. I see the spreadsheets, so I understand all that. Where I see it going and where it has to go is we have to innovate. There has to be new models that come up, whether it's MTM based or whatever it may be. With Amazon looking at jumping into pharmaceuticals, there's just so many different avenues that people could go. What telehealth, I think, is going to be absolutely huge for pharmacists. Yeah. Managing diabetes, managing hypertension, heart failure, all these very chronic health conditions that are very complex. Having access to a pharmacist via telehealth would be a huge, huge, huge benefit. The problem I feel like in retail pharmacy or community pharmacy is that especially the big companies are very slow to innovate because they have certain metrics that may or may not be actually beneficial for long-term thinking. And it really puts a damper on the quality that we can give patients. And we have to start innovating quickly because people are going to eventually lose faith in pharmacists. If the person goes to the pharmacy and doesn't get the customer service or doesn't get the time spent with them counseling, then they're not going to see a pharmacist as the most trusted healthcare professional in the world anymore. It's going to be just the guy that rings up my cotton balls when I go to pick up my prescription.
It's getting tough because I feel like even, I would probably say that even we're there now, whereas like people, when they go to pharmacies, they're not really caring which pharmacist is filling their medications. They're not caring which pharmacist is providing counseling. They just want to get their medications filled quickly and obviously making sure it's the right medication and safely as possible. But I mean, I think people would argue that, I actually wrote a Medium article about this, about how, getting your prescription is not like buying a loaf of bread. Like it doesn't matter, who made that loaf of bread. Once it's something that, you want, where that bread is, the type of bread. Doesn't matter whether you get it from Publix, Kroger, Rite Aid, whatever. Like, the bread you want, and that's just the one you're going to get, no matter where you get it from.
Right.
And I think that medications is becoming something similar where people don't care where they're getting their medications from now. And I think that's why Amazon is going to be able to come in and make such a difference. One, they're Amazon, so their branding is amazing, obviously. They have the logistics and infrastructure to do damage in anything that they want to do. But it's going to be an even bigger impact where in an industry where people don't care where they're getting their prescriptions from, like if they can get it super easily and quickly and efficiently from Amazon, where is that going to leave, the other community pharmacies? And
it's just a matter of time. And before Amazon's using drones to bring medication to people, I mean, it's not far out. People will laugh at that and think that it's something like that's like 5 years out max. Like that's coming.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's just the thing about Amazon that I think should scare a lot of pharmacies is that they really embrace innovation. They are constantly looking for the next thing, and I feel like a lot of the pharmacies do not embrace innovation. They're not constantly looking. They're looking to meet, certain metrics and not look for, okay, well, I can be profitable. I can squeeze a little bit more profit out here instead of looking, okay, what's pharmacy going to look like in 10 years?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah, it is, man. And like, I always try to figure out, like, what's crazy? Like psychologists. Right? I think psychologists and psychology has been the same, their role in healthcare has been, we know what it is. Like, you have a mental issue, or you think you may have a mental issue, you go see a psychologist. That model of care has been established for so long. But I feel like pharmacy, we don't really know what our model is. Like, we don't really have our real place in healthcare yet, because it's always changing, right? Mm-hmm. Like 100 years ago, we used to be making the medications, the pharmacists at that time. Then it became to purely dispensing. That was just the role, was like just to get it out, to make sure it was like the right one. And now, with the adoption of PharmD and we're going into all these different industries, we don't really know where our future is going to be, in terms of being a pharmacist, and we don't have that real play in healthcare. And I wonder how it's going to change now that, we're moving away from the dispensing role. Like, if you think about how easy it is to dispense a medication now, you don't need a pharmacist there to really do that,
And this is the thought process and the whole thesis that backs why I put the content that I do on social media and things like that. Like, if any of you guys have followed Core Consult on any platform, have had to have seen my hashtag Learn Every Day. And that's because I see so many pharmacists who are in certain settings, whether it may be dispensing in a hospital or in community or retail, whatever, who can do their jobs, they can get by, but they are not ready for having to be forced into a different role. And whether that's the only role that you're probably going to be forced into in the future is a clinical role. And instead of keeping up with clinical information and staying current, they are very complacent with where they're at. They're making good money, and they're going to have fun on the weekends. They're going to have fun when they get home from work. They're going to watch football. They're going to do this. And I just feel like it's just one of those things you're setting yourself up for, especially the ones that, if you're in your 30s or 40s and you have no plans to retire, you should be really, really uncomfortable with, if you're not continually looking for new certifications, you're looking to enhance your education, working on new models. I mean, you have to be actively looking. I feel like pharmacy is, honestly, especially in the community setting, and I'm saying this as a community pharmacist, I feel like community setting pharmacists are one of the slackest group when it comes to continuing education. Yeah. Because you can get by you're not a good pharmacist. I don't believe you're a great pharmacist when you do this. I feel like you're, bottom of the barrel, but you can get by without it, because you can always just default to, just call your doctor. And I despise that. Yeah. Especially when it's a question that a pharmacist should be answering.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, you really can get by just, after you get your degree, you can really stop learning. I mean, you have to do your CE accreditation, like whatever, but you can really stop learning and get by as a community pharmacist. I think you're right in that sense.
So I actually had a pharmacist tell me when I was a fourth year, I was on my second to last rotation. They said, really take time to enjoy this, because this is the smartest you'll ever be right now. Man, screw that. That is the worst. I hate that attitude. I'm like, that's the only profession in healthcare that could get by with that. Nursing isn't like that. Dentistry isn't like that. We're the only ones that would ever let that come out of our mouth, because that would be insanity to say anything else. Yeah. And now looking back, 2.5 years, going on 3 years after graduation, I am so much more knowledgeable with pharmacotherapy than I was when I graduated. Yeah. And I'm so glad I completely went against that mentality, because
which it makes sense, because you really, when you're out practicing, you're on the field, you can start connecting, this knowledge to people. Right. And you can start, and now it has real weight and real value when you deliver that knowledge. So, it really doesn't make sense to say that, well, that's going to be your smartest time, where it's the least amount of time to be that smart. That's the least important time to be that smart. Like, the most important time to be smarter or continue to gain that knowledge is when you're out practicing, when it is meaningful. So I will say I've, Core Consult, I follow that all, that information that's on there. You can find it on Instagram. He's on Twitter. There's an Alexa briefing, which is awesome. Yeah. But you can get, and Snapchat also, you can get all your, on social media while you're scrolling through your feed. You can get a bunch of topics and keep up to date with what's going on in pharmacology and get those refreshers. A lot of updates on studies. I mean, it's all a bunch of good stuff that's on there. So if you're not already yet, make sure to follow Core Consult.
I'm gonna add something too, kind of going, if it's cool. I'm gonna go back and add one little bit. you'll hear one of the arguments you hear about consulting patients and spending the time going over certain meds or whatever it may be is that the pharmacist doesn't have time in a retail setting or a community setting. And in some cases, that's probably true. You may not have time or it may put you behind. But this is my personal thought process on the matter. And I'm always, every single thing I do, regardless of what it is, anything I do in pharmacy is always a pawn being moved on my career chessboard. And I'm trying to open doors. I'm trying to look for different opportunities. So for me, I know that clinical pharmacies has to be the future. This dispensing model is not sustainable long term. So at some point in my life, I'm going to have to go the clinical route. So regardless of whether I have to stay later because I got behind from when I did spend time counseling patients, I'm going to practice that now, because if I'm not comfortable practicing with or not comfortable consulting patients face-to-face on any disease state they happen to bring up, then I'm not going to be able to do it when it comes time to really do it. And so for me, I don't give a crap if you're not going to pay me or I'm not going to make more money or in the short-term game now. I'm going to practice that skill so that when I get out of it and all my other peers are now scrambling because they feel like they're out of practice and they're doing this, that, and the other. And I'm going to say, no big deal. What's the next model? Let's go. I'm ready. Like that's where I want to always be ready. I don't know what doors are going to be open. Yeah. But I know that I'm going to be ready to jump through it whenever it is.
And that's honestly, I mean, like I'm getting chills right now hearing that, because that is a like legitimate tip, I think, for the community pharmacist specifically. Because I mean, including myself, we can all agree that, we fall behind with clinically. Like there's no, and it's one of those things is because we feel like we're maybe not using it, because when we're on the job, we're not using all these clinical knowledge and studies and getting all these questions asked. But if the trend continues and, the next role for us really is our only option is to go clinical, like he's completely right. You're going to feel like you're left behind. You're going to feel like, I think of the time, the recent political issue was, the coal miners. Like the coal miners all lost their job. Well, why? Because, the industry changed. Like that's what happened.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a similar situation with pharmacists. If you continue to not stay up to date, to not, keep your skills sharp, that you'll end up like the coal miners. One day you'll look back in 10 years and say, oh, where's my old job back? Well, if you didn't do what you needed to do to stay up to date clinically and be able to perform at a high level in your profession, right, you're going to get left behind.
And it's not even just pharmacy. Any job, like truck drivers are in trouble. Like eventually we're going to have Tesla trucks or whatever brand it is driving themselves. We don't need those people. There's going to be, I mean, the coal miners probably weren't too upset when other types of workers lost their jobs, whether it was chimney sweepers or bookstore owners or all these things. Like innovation is always going to constantly change things and adapt. So you either have to be working on your skills now or be left behind. That's the only two options. Yeah. And I just feel like there's so many people that are just unwilling to do that, and it's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, yeah. So how about let's talk about some advice and ways, I guess, maybe like that we can talk to like specifically pharmacists out practicing now. Like what are really good ways for them to stay up to date or other than obviously following you. Yeah. But I mean, other than that, what are ways that they can really stay up to date?
So there's lots of different sites you can subscribe to. Medscape's one. There's Evidence Alerts. That's a free website that you can basically subscribe to and get emails sent to you every night on clinical trials that are new for whatever topics you decided that interest you or you want to learn more about. There's a video on my Instagram showing you exactly how to sign up for that. I have no affiliation with them. I just personally use it, so I know it's good. And you can sign, Journal Watch from New England Journal of Medicine. There's so many different avenues you can go to keep up with information. Drugs.com will send you an email as soon as there's a new drug released. Nice. There's so many of them. The one thing I would say is you're a pharmacist. You make a 6-figure salary most likely. Spend a tiny bit of your money, whether it's 1% or 2% of your money every year on continuing education. And if your boards say that you have to have 15 hours or 20 hours or whatever it may be in your state, like to keep up with your license, that's not what you go by. You go by how much do you feel like you've learned? You don't care about how many hours of continuing education, or if you even get credit for the continuing education, and pay the money to enroll in a class, take a seminar, buy a new subscription to whatever journal. And then if you're anywhere near a teaching hospital or a pharmacy school, go and volunteer. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I have gone down to MUSC, which is where I graduated from, and have helped out professors in the lab, have graded patient consultation exams, things like that. I do it all the time. And I also go and spend time with some of the professors there that, I mean, are just unbelievable. We have one guy named Waithe. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. He's been published on, I don't know how many different journals, and he's just done amazing things in family medicine. And he's right there 15 minutes from my house where he works. There's people that pay $500,000 to go to a seminar, see him speak, and I can go hang out in his office anytime I want.
Yeah, nice.
And I've taken vacation days from work and had pharmacists tell me that that's dumb, that I'm going to burn myself out because I'm taking vacation days to go do more pharmacy. Oh, you should be going to have fun. You should be going to relax. I'm like, do you not see the value in that? It's worth well more than a vacation day.
Yeah. For
me to go hang out with this guy, I've learned an unbelievable amount. And because I've developed relationships, now they've opened up more avenues for me to learn. And now it's just effortless. Working with students, I just have tons of information coming at me. But it's because I put in the work initially to make these relationships.
Yeah.
And people that are at the top, they want to help you. They look for people who, the reason they're at the top is because they did all the same stuff that you're now doing. So they want people who look like them because they see a little bit of themselves probably in you, and they're going to want to help you. So why not take advantage of that?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that I see. I think that everyone should be following along and realizing that, hey, you need to, build these relationships. You need to plant these seeds, and really start making sure you're learning every day, to be successful.
100%.
And to continue on. This was so far one of the most valuable episodes, I think, that at least personally that I've gotten out, from in terms of me being motivated to do more and me being really excited about the future of pharmacy and seeing what we do, and I really do appreciate you being on the show here with me.
Oh man, of course, anytime.
I do hope this is one of many to come. Any parting thoughts?
No, just find out, start small. Find a little bit of time that you can start reading some new material. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's good, solid data, good, solid content, and start like Richard said, start learning every day. And the more you do it, it'll just become effortless after a while, and it'll just be part of your normal routine. And you'll be shocked at how much more prepared you feel for whatever comes at you in the future.
And there it is. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I really hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I hope it was as insightful to you as it was to me. Please leave me a comment on Instagram or on iTunes. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Any feedback is going to be greatly appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, see you over the counter.
Pharmacy.